Basic human interaction skills. Like you said, I'm old school a little bit. I like eye contact. I like a firm handshake. I like when the kid is able to speak for themselves and not relying on their parents. Those are
Hi again, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast presented by Provenzano's Deli and the Charger Athletics Fund. As always, our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. And of course, we thank you for joining us across all of our social media channels today. I'm JW Stewart, joined by our UNH AD, Dr. Z, Shane Zenger. Here in a few minutes, our guest today is Kelsi Lykens, who's the field hockey coach at UNH. Dr. Z, we'll get into this with Kelsi in a little bit, but certainly what she's done in a relatively short period of time with that field hockey program is pretty unbelievable.
And there's a lot of momentum in the department right now across the board in most all of our sports. And I know no coach likes to talk about this at length, but I think they're sitting at 8-2 in the league right now. Think about where they were, and I know that's going to be a big part of what we talk about with her as an emerging sport, as a new sport just a few years ago. That's big.
That's right with the record, and I don't know if they've played a tougher schedule than any other program on campus. And again, we'll get into that with her. Certainly, Dr. Z, you get the chance to go to a lot of sporting events on our campus. How often do you get a chance to travel to away games?
It's kind of hit and miss, and it depends on different sports at the same time, what's going on. But by the end of this year, I will have been to every campus. I was on my way to that the first year, and then the pandemic hit, and I didn't get to see some there for a good chunk of time. But ironically, I've seen a place like St. Anselm's 3 or 4 times, and Adelphi once, and Southern several times. But then there's places like St. Rose and others that I've not seen at all.
I think it will, and certainly the way that the women's field hockey program is going, you might be doing some traveling depending on how the playoffs shake out.
That'd be a welcome opportunity.
Let's bring out Coach Kelsi Lykens. She's been our the one and only women's field hockey coach here in the history of the University of New Haven. Kelsi joins us from her house. Kelsi, I'll have you unmute yourself. You joined Dr. Z and I a year ago for the virtual Centennial Ball. It's great to see you, first of all. Welcome back to the podcast. For those viewers and listeners who don't know you, please give them a little idea of your story and your path here to UNH.
Well, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of Philadelphia. I started field hockey in 3rd grade because my parents started the program at my school. So I played from 3rd all the way to 12th grade. And then I got myself to Westchester University, where luckily we won 2 national championships in 2011 and 2012. And luckily this past year, we just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, which was great. I wasn't able to make the ceremony, but they plan to have a dinner in the spring. So I'm looking forward to reminiscing on those memories with some teammates. But after Westchester, I stayed on as their part-time assistant coach for a season, and then made my way to take the assistant job at Sacred Heart University, right down the road in Fairfield. Stayed there for 2 seasons, and then I saw an opportunity to start a program at New Haven, and I just had to jump. I was ready and excited to be a head coach, had a lot of energy and drive, and wanted to be in control. And that's when I knew it was time for me to go. So
Kelsi is somewhat of an old school throwback coach. When she talks about take control, she's all in. I've asked you a lot of questions before, and it has to do with your parents starting that program. Did either of them have a background in field hockey? What inspired them to do that at your school?
My mom actually played 4 years of field hockey at Westchester University. She played that, volleyball, and softball all at Westchester. So she was an athlete. And then when she met my dad, she pretty much introduced him to the sport. And so then they really decided to build a program together. So my mom is the one that has the field hockey background and the expertise and the hockey IQ. But my dad is a phenomenal coach. And I want to say a people's coach. He knows how to motivate people. He knows what to say to get them to do, what they need to do in that moment. He can coach any sport, I guarantee it, just based off of how he knows how to build interactions and connections with kids.
When you first got the job at UNH and it's your job to build the program, did you talk to your parents and get advice from them on how to do that?
I think it's a lot different building something at the youth level versus the collegiate level. I think I talked a lot to them about how to deal with loss. I think that was my biggest learning curve going throughout this program, is just going from a winning program and them seeing a lot of success and growing theirs right away. The numbers just were there for them to be able to do that. And coming to New Haven, I feel like That's what I struggled with at first, was building the team and then keeping them. The retention after that first year was difficult. And then just loss after loss after loss. That was really challenging for me. It took a toll on me mentally for sure. But like I said, I just used that as motivation, and my parents did help me a lot with that. Just keeping me motivated, trust the process, keep grinding, just all of those things that I already knew inside. But just as your parents, they're there to remind you and support you in those moments.
But you've got some serious field hockey athletes out there now who know what they're doing and are getting after it. That has to feel good to you, that you can X and O now with some freedom that you couldn't in the past.
I think the biggest factor driving our team right now is our senior class. And I say that just because they've had to be starters since they were freshmen. And right now their experience is unmatched. Just starting and playing 60 minutes every single game from your freshman year to your senior year, that's a majority of that class. Obviously, I've out-recruited a little bit. Obviously, you're bringing in better players, but honestly, they've trusted that process so much and have grown so much as field hockey players over the course of the 4 years that their experience, it is, like I said, unmatched.
Who would you like to highlight, either from that senior class or anyone on this program that's helped you guys get to where you are right now, which is, you guys have a winning record right now, especially in conference at 8-2.
I would really like to point out Julia Bettino, number 10. She's one of our starting center mids. She's been thrown around position. She was at our right mid position for 3 years. And this past year, we switched her to the center midfield position based off of, again, experience, leadership, communication, the ability to organize teammates in front of her. And then she plays very closely with Alexis Ryder, who is number 13, who also plays the center mid spot. So they work very closely together. Ryder is pretty much lethal on the attacking side of the ball, and Julia is a lot more defensive. So they balance each other out incredibly well, and they've been playing together for the last 4 years. And then I would say the last person is our center back, Taylor Gigolo, number 18. And we call that the spine of our field. So our 2 center mids, and then our center back, our center forward is included in that too. And that's Sophie Schreck, which is a transfer from Stonehill. And it's the foundation of where we're at. So all 4 of them are phenomenal leaders on the field, our biggest communicators, and have a lot of experience.
So you go from building a program to losing, obviously, right away. You're not going to win right away. Then you have no season a year ago because of COVID. And now this year it's been a success, but every game or every week it seems like you're playing a nationally ranked opponent. So how do you manage this roller coaster or this transition from year to year?
Part of the tough schedule this year is on me. I know we have nationally ranked teams that are just in our conference and we have to play them, but I also chose to play very difficult teams for a non-conference schedule. So we played, as a non-conference game, we played Adelphi, we played St. A's, we played Westchester University, and we played Bloomsburg. And when we played all of them, they were nationally ranked. So, and we continue to have nationally ranked teams that on our schedule left. We have Stonehill, we have Bentley, and we have St. A's left. Again, all nationally ranked, and that's just the NE10. But that's what I find very exciting about this conference, is there's never one team dominating every single year. There's 15 schools that are in the conference for field hockey. And that makes it so exciting. And when it comes down to crunch time and who's going to be in that top 8, things can change last minute. And for me, I get a high off of that. I absolutely love that. So just figuring out who's going to be able to make playoffs, who needs to lose, who needs to win these games. It's exciting, but it was tough not having a year last year. I think we would have benefited from a full year of experience, especially that senior class. We would have been able to develop our team chemistry and structure on the field a little bit more. But honestly, for not having that year and going from 5 wins in 2019 to already 8, I'm really happy with our progress.
How do you feel about your playoff chances going down the stretch? You mentioned before, when we were chit-chatting before we came on the broadcast, you've done a bunch of mathematical computations. How many formulas do you have out there, and how does it look for you guys when you plug the numbers into the Kelsi Lykens algorithm here?
You don't want to know how many formulas, but it's tough. I think there's a bigger gap between the 7th and 8th place team right now in the conference. So we're sitting obviously a little bit higher than that. We took a couple rough losses recently, but we've dropped a little bit in the rankings. I still think that we're going to be safe, But in my opinion, and based off of my algorithm, like you said, we need to win at least one out of these next 4 games. Those small goals that help enhance our culture, the wins are going to come. And that's what we've always believed in. And I think that is what has gotten us as far as we have this season.
It's like you've picked the right young women to be on your team to build this program. When you're recruiting, what do you look for? And, I'm sure position, dictates a little bit of that, or different positions do. But more specifically, for those people who aren't as familiar with field hockey, who are maybe out west or the Midwest, who are listening or watching this, but are field hockey players starting to focus only on field hockey, or do these young people still continue to play other sports in high school?
A lot are specializing, and to be honest, those are not necessarily the athletes that I want on my team. I want an athlete. I believe so much in cross-referencing sports. Having a massive background in basketball specifically, I relate a lot to that sport and pressing. So when we're defending a 16 coming out, it's all about how are we pressing? Are we in a full? Are we in a half? Are we cutting off a transfer? Are we running at the other team like a run and jump? I use a lot of my references from other sports in my coaching, and knowing that an athlete comes to me with that knowledge of other sports, and it doesn't necessarily have to be basketball. It could be lacrosse, it could be soccer. And we referenced softball the other day on my team because we were diving in a goal, and we talked about, sliding, or how you're bringing your hands through on your hit could relate to a softball pitch coming in. So we talk all the time about other sports. So I don't necessarily love that specialized kid. I like the athlete. And that's one of the things that I look for. Those communication skills are important to me because it goes back to what I had learned from my dad, the connection and the interaction that I'm going to be able to have with that student athlete. They're going to be able to trust me. And when I have that trust, we're going to see success on the field. And I think that's at the core of my philosophy. So I don't always look for the flashiest player. I look for the right one.
When you look out across our society, especially the younger generation, the generation you're recruiting, where is the communication skills? Are they up here or not quite where they should be, in your opinion?
I've seen a big difference with COVID. It's tough when I can't get the handshake, or I can't read like how they're speaking or how they're holding themselves necessarily with a mask on. I think obviously with Zoom calls too, there was a time period where like I never was able to meet with someone on campus and I'm offering them a roster position. That happened for my 2020 recruiting class. So the kids I want are out there. It just takes a lot of no's before I find the yes. And I'm willing to go through that work. If I don't like someone or I'm not a huge fan, I'm not scared to say no. I have no regrets when it comes to that. I don't mind being picky and finding the ones that are going to be the right fit for us.
The Z and J Dub podcast presented by Provenzano's Deli and the Charger Athletics Fund. Our guest today is Kelsi Lykens, the field hockey coach here at the University of New Haven. Kelsi, earlier in the program, Dr. Z was saying that, you're so intense, you're so focused on your job, which is great. When you do have free time, what do you do with it? What do you do for fun?
That's a great question. The answer is probably watch film, but that shouldn't be the answer. No, that is a good question. My fiance and I absolutely love going out to dinner. I'm actually fairly artistic, which I don't think a lot of people know. I used to write a lot of poetry, especially throughout college. I actually taught myself how to do some like cursive writing and fancy handwriting throughout COVID. So sometimes I'll open up my books that teach me how to write certain ways, and I'll do that. I'm actually very into meditation, and I have been even pre-COVID. So I have this app called Headspace that I absolutely love using because, as you can imagine, I have trouble sleeping. I have a racing mind, and field hockey drills come to me all the time. So I end up meditating. So those are just a few things, but
just like Kelsi was talking about student athletes that have played multiple sports and how that carries over. I think when you're good at something else, like being an artist or a poet or something, I think it carries over. I really do.
You mentioned poetry. Do you still write poetry?
I write when I have a lot on my mind, or I can't make sense of anything. To be honest with you, it's normally more therapeutic than necessarily enjoyment. Like I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a poem right now. It's generally when I don't feel very clear up here. Being able to put my words together in a very different way allows me to be able to figure out where I'm feeling, like what I'm feeling, where I'm feeling it, and how it's affecting me in my life, in my daily life, in my relationship, going into my team, more of a therapeutic technique. And I actually encourage that with a lot of my student athletes. And it could be in the form of poetry, or it could be a brain dump of just, I got a lot going on up here on my team right now who took it up, and now she's able to sleep better. So she's doing that, and she's listening to a podcast before she's going to bed. The difference I've seen in just a week of her doing that is unreal. So I just think it can be incredibly therapeutic. So
that's the age-old question is, does poetry have to rhyme? Kelsi, what's your answer to that?
Nope. Hard no.
I didn't have an answer to that one. The longer the book, the better,
Kelsi, considering where the program has come and where it is now, what would it mean to the program as a whole to, number one, not only finish with a winning record, but number two, make the NE10 playoffs for the first time in school history?
Sorry if I get emotional. This has been our goal since that my senior class has been a freshman year. And we were going for it in 2020. I think if we had 2020, it would have been more of a stretch. But I know they're motivated in order to do that. And it's something, like I said, we've touched on, and that has been our end goal. But our small goals leading up to that aren't necessarily field hockey based, they're culture based. But I know in the back of their mind that this is what they want, because they've put so much energy, effort, and heart into this program. And I think that would just be the cherry on top, making playoffs. I think they're already happy with the progress that they've made, going from 5 wins to 8 wins. And I think we've made a name for ourselves in the conference. I don't think it's to the point where people are like, oh, New Haven, that'll be an easy win for us. I think we are a threat in the conference, and I think we've made a name for ourselves there. So I'm already happy with that, but getting to the championship or getting to the playoffs would be an absolute dream.
Emotional. What emotions are you feeling?
This is the hours of hard work that has gone into building a program overall. I get emotional with my team a lot when I talk about this, because I, just like them, I put everything into the program, to Dr. Z's point, almost too much. But it's a part of everything that I do every day. The choices that I make are a reflection on how I can perform best for my team and be the best coach that I can every single day, not just on game day, but at practices. And it's a stressful time of the semester right now. They just finished midterms. It's fall break, but at the same time, we're in the heavy point of our season where we could or could not make playoffs. That comes with a lot of pressure. And how are you dealing with that pressure? And what choices are you making outside of the field? Are they going to help, or are they going to hurt us? So our mindset has to do with the choices that we make. And I am emotional because I think I do make every choice that is a good reflection of our program and where I want to be. It means so much to me, and it might sound cheesy to other people, but this is my life, and this is what I want.
Dr. Z, any final questions for Kelsi?
That's what makes doing this for a living worthwhile. You take Kelsi and you replicate her across all our sports, and our coaches, our head coaches, our assistant coaches, they care this much. Some show it differently than others, but it's their life's work. And the beauty of being here at UNH and in our niche, so to speak, is nobody here is doing it to become wealthy or doing it for huge crowds. They're doing it for all the right reasons. And as you can tell with Kelsi, she's an educator, she's a teacher, she's a coach, she's a competitor. And that's really what we're here for, to teach these 500 student athletes we have how to compete on the field of play, in the classroom, in their personal life. And this, what you just saw and heard right there, is what we do best, I believe, at the University of New Haven.
Kelsi Lykens, our field hockey coach at the University of New Haven. Kelsi, thanks for the time. More importantly, thanks for everything you're doing for our field hockey program and the young ladies that you coach. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program, and Dr. Z and I wish you the best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you. If we make playoffs, I better see you at the game.
That's Kelsi Lykens, the field hockey coach here at the University of New Haven. This is the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast presented by Provenzano's Deli and the Charger Athletics Fund. With an annual gift of $500 or more to the Charger Athletics Fund, you get access to the pregame football VIP tent, the sideline VIP tent, and the postgame reception at the German Club. Of course, the time now for our student athletes of the week. Jessica Akiona, the pride of Hawaii. Akiona led the Chargers to a pair of wins last week in a 3-0 victory over Pace. Jessica had 9 kills, 3 blocks, and an ace. An outside hitter, Jessica followed that up with a career best 17 kills and 2 blocks in a 3-1 victory over Franklin Pierce. thanks in part to Jessica's play. The Chargers have won 10 matches in a row as of this podcast recording. Male athlete of the week is Jake Conlon. In the fourth quarter, the running back recovered a kick that was knocked down by the wind. Eventually, it basically is an onside kick. It was ignored by AIC, so he recovered the kick, and a few plays later, he scored what ended up being the finishing touchdown in the 30-14 victory over AIC up in Springfield, Massachusetts. Conlon, part of a rushing attack that rolled up 260 yards this past Saturday. UNH football team has won 4 in a row, is 5-1 overall, and 4-0 in the NE10. UNH at Stonehill on Saturday. Dr. Z, final thoughts as we wrap up this podcast.
I really enjoyed this one, J-Dub. I enjoy all of our podcasts, but this one was really, I started with saying, Kelsi's a little old school. This was coaching 101 from tip to gun. And that's what you get when you talk to Coach Lykens. And it's fun to watch her build this program. In my own world, you try to be a little careful with a coach that's building a program from scratch to let her and them set their own expectations. And if anything, with Kelsi, kind of taper her back a little bit, because her expectations have always been greater than what others might expect. But I think you're seeing the proof in the pudding these days.
That'll wrap up another edition of the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast presented by Provenzano's Deli and the Charger Athletics Fund. For more information or how to donate, you can go to chargerathleticsfund.com. For our producer, Broccoli Rob Thompson, for executive producer John Mays, for Dr. Z, I'm J-Dub. Thanks for joining us here on the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. We'll see you next time.
I have things I like to do as well. Not many, but a few. The beach and the Jeep and the, the drill.